You guys, I am so excited to announce that Mica is It's Amanda with Eat, Pray, Crunch, and I am here telling you the story of donating our embryos from our IVF that we had done back in 2012. In part 1, I tell the whole synopsis of our infertility journey. If you'd like to see that, I will put that here in the cards. If you want to go into much more in-depth detail about our infertility journey, because that's just a synopsis, I have a whole playlist on our infertility journey. So I will also link that here in the cards. In the last video, we talked about the process that we went through in deciding that we wanted to donate our 6 leftover embryos to a known couple and have like an open kind of situation. So that's where we left off in part 2, and now part 3, how we found a family. So, like I said in the last video, this story just has God's fingerprints all over it. It really still kind of amazes me daily that this is all even happening. So once we had made that decision, we want to donate these embryos to a couple that is known. It was then, how are we going to find a couple that we really jive with? Because we felt like if we're going to hand off our genetic embryos to somebody else, like, we want to have a say in who they are going to. We want to make sure that this is a family that is very good family, shares a number of the values that we share, people that we like and get along with, because this could potentially become a lifelong relationship. And so that's an enormous task. That's an enormous task. And ultimately we prayed about it. And within a couple of months, my best friend Priya, thank you Priya, you are like the ultimate arranger. She also set up a good friend of ours with her husband. So anyway, she's the ultimate arranger, the ultimate matchmaker. So thank you, Priya. But she had just happened to be following this gal's blog, who was a friend of one of her coworkers. And they had an infertility blog, and she had been following it for a while. So my friend Priya sent me a message. She's like, hey, you should check out this friend of a friend. She has a blog. You can read her whole crazy infertility story. And they are putting their feelers out for seeking embryo donors. They had conceived their son through embryo donation, and they were ready to have their second child. And I was like, oh, really now? And so I did a little reading. I read their blog, and I was just like dumbfounded by how difficult their infertility journey has been. Like, I felt like what we went through was peanuts. Like, they had a very long, drawn out, heartbreaking journey with a number of losses, like major losses, and try after try, IVFs, IUIs, like all sorts of very involved process. And ultimately, they decided to adopt an embryo the first time around, which resulted in their son. And he is the cutest, sweetest little guy. Yeah, they wanted to have a sibling for him, and so that's why they were putting their feelers out. And so this is where this couldn't be anything other than God orchestrating this. Like, it couldn't be anything but that. Like, just so happened that my friend happened to see this blog post, and that she just sent me a message. And like, just the fact that this all came together the way it did is just, it's a God thing. So I was really moved by the blog that I read. And this gal's name is Mica. and her husband's name is Thomas. And I reached out to her. I sent her a message and I said, hey, you don't know me, but we have a mutual friend in common, and she told me about your blog post and that you were just putting your feelers out there. Does anyone know anybody that is looking to donate embryos? And just so happens, we are looking to donate embryos. Do you think maybe we could, get to know each other and see if we might be a good match? And so she was like, heck yes, let's do that. So we got to know each other and just realized how well we meshed together, and we soon became friends. And it just became clearer and clearer that this is very much a God thing, and this is the family. And I can't even believe it was like that easy. We didn't even have to go through any sort of like agency. There are whole websites and like groups and things like that that are made just for matching people for this kind of thing. We didn't even have to do any of that. It was just like the stars aligned. God made it happen. However you want to view it. It still boggles my mind to this day. So that's how we found our family. So then we ultimately decided to meet in person for the first time and just like really be open and honest with each other about, the things that they were looking for, the things that we were looking for. Like, let's have a very serious, real conversation. Are we actually a good match? And of course, we felt like we wanted to just be open and transparent about everything, like disclosing every health thing that we knew about, disclosing about like Alex's autism and like my chronic condition, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. We just wanted to be really open and honest about those things, just so they know. And ultimately, we left dinner that night and we all went home and we prayed about it. And several days later, I got a message from her and she said, we're in. And I said, all right, we're in too. So that was the beginning of our special friendship. So there was a huge long process that we had to go through legally and everything. I hate that they refer to it this way in Washington where we live, but it is a transfer of property. I really feel like they need to change the verbiage on that. So it was a process of them going through a lawyer and writing up a contract between us. Mica is a busy businesswoman and she had a lot of new things going on with her business and everything at the same time. It was just a busy time for all of us. We also had our business getting going at the time. And it was just a busy time for all of us. And there's all these steps that the fertility clinic makes us go through and them go through. And it really is a very involved process, which I understand. This is a very big deal, almost as big of a deal as actual adoption. So it makes sense that there are all of these hoops that you have to jump through because these are potential little babies that we're talking about. So we went through that process, and once all was said and done, from the time that it was time for us to actually hand over the embryos was almost a full year. So we finally got everything arranged. So we actually arranged a day for us to meet physically at the clinic where we could do not just a symbolic but a literal handoff of the embryos from us to them. And so that's what we did. And I actually vlogged that whole process. So I will actually be making, as a part 4, I will make a vlog showing all of us there at the clinic and that whole process of us transferring the embryos over to them in this big tank. It was kind of a surreal and beautiful experience. One of her good friends was a videographer, and she had a videographer there documenting the whole process. I think that's really cool. And she said that ultimately once that video is made, that I can share it on my YouTube channel as well, but that probably won't be until there is actually a baby in arms. So that's what we did. So we have now officially donated our 6 embryos to our friends, Mica and Thomas. Mica is very active on Instagram and Facebook. You can follow her. I will have her profiles linked below if you would like to follow her and her perspective in all of this, because she has been documenting this whole process from her perspective. And so I highly encourage you guys to go over and get to know her over there and check her out. And you can go back and see what this process has been like from her end. So fast forward a month or 2 after we handed over the embryos in this big old tank. Like I said, it was like such a surreal experience, like looking at this tank and knowing those little embryos are in there. Like 6 potential human beings are in there. Like it's just, it's crazy. It's crazy and amazing and beautiful. So anyway, a couple of months later, through her fertility clinic, they did a transfer. During that time, she was preparing her body, doing all of the things, getting ready, and they did a transfer. And you guys, I am so excited to announce that Mica is pregnant. And she is actually well into her 2nd trimester pregnant. I wanted to wait to talk about this on my YouTube channel until it was looking like things were very promising and that we were at a point where we were ready to tell our own kids before we, told the whole world about it. So we are just beyond thrilled and really feeling a sense of peace about it. So far, intellectually, it's weird thinking that she's carrying our genetic child. Like, that's crazy. It's crazy. But at the same time, it feels really right. At the same time, I'm feeling zero regret about it. Like, it just feels so right. We always know that it's coming from God when it's, that sense of peace. And we've just continued to have this sense of peace about the whole thing so far throughout her pregnancy. And I've been messaging with her now and then, just checking in on her. And she had a really very rough first trimester, poor thing, lots of sickness, but she's starting to come out of that now, and she is getting well into her 2nd trimester. And I mean, like, timing, this happened right as the pandemic was hitting. They were starting to do a lot of limitations in clinics and things like that, like just starting to. So like she just squeaked in there with this pandemic. And then, as you guys know, I was diagnosed with cancer, breast cancer, days before she was scheduled to have this transfer done. And I have my whole video playlist on that here on my breast cancer journey. And she was one of the very first people that we contacted once we got that news, saying, just because we wanted full transparency, like, look, I have breast cancer. We don't know if, at the time, we didn't know if it was a genetic thing or what, like, we wanted them to know. And she was like, we love you. We know that this is a God thing. God knew about this all along. This changes nothing. Like, I cried when she sent that. They are beautiful people inside and out. So they knew full well this journey that I have been on the last few months as well. For those of you who are just joining, I was diagnosed with breast cancer at the end of February, and we ended up catching it really early, which was a good thing. And I am what we believe to be cancer-free, but I have a high risk of recurrence. So to significantly reduce that risk, I am actually undergoing chemo right now as we speak and will be through the end of the summer. So that is just what's going on in my life right now. But I have to tell you that this knowledge that this new life is forming right now, and that it was this collaborative thing, all of these people coming together to make life for these little embryos possible, has been this enormous shining beaming light amidst this difficult stuff that we've been going through with cancer and with the pandemic, all of that at the same time. It truly has been this ray of hope that's really been keeping me going. The whole thing is just so beautiful and amazing. And it just goes to show that, God's light shines in the dark. We're just so thrilled for them that, like, it was the first try with them too, the first embryo that they transferred. It had happened. and we are just beyond thrilled for them. Oh, just in terms of like the kind of relationship that we're gonna have with them, we're still working out the details with that, but we're thinking kind of like an aunt and uncle cousin kind of relationship, like cousins with the kids kind of thing. And we actually are going to be telling the kids very shortly. I found a couple of books online that explain this whole kind of situation to kids. I think that's going to be a really special thing to tell them. So that will probably be a video that I have coming up, so stay tuned for that. And so the next video I put up is actually going to be the vlog of when we literally handed off the embryos from us to them. So stay tuned for that. And if you are new here, definitely consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell so you know when I put up a new video. And we'll see you in the next video. Take care, guys. Bye.